Route 128, also known as the Yankee Division Highway, and originally the Circumferential Highway, is a partial beltway around Boston, Massachusetts, United States. It is also used to refer to the high-technology industry that developed from the 1960s to the 1980s in the suburban areas along the highway. The majority of the highway is built to freeway standards, and about 3/5 of it is part of the Interstate Highway System. In local culture, Route 128 is seen as something of a dividing line between the inner municipalities of Greater Boston and the more far-flung suburbs. The road's roughly 10-mile radius, for example, also delimits most of the area accessible by the MBTA rapid transit system. Much of the area within Route 128 was developed before World War II, while the area outside it was developed more recently. Despite a majority of Route 128's length running concurrent with either I-93 or Y-95, most area residents refer to the entire length of the highway as Route 128. This includes the portion of I-93 south of Canton, which is no longer 128 at all, and substantial portions of I-95 that are not noticeably signed as 128. The perception of Route 128 running the entire length of highway from Gloucester to Braintree dates back to the road's pre-interstate era, and has become an established part of local culture. Route description. The Route 128 number dates from the origin of the Massachusetts highway system in the 1920s. By the 1950s, it ran from Nantasket Beach in Hull to Gloucester. The first 27-mile section of the current limited-access highway from Braintree to Gloucester was opened in 1951. It was the first limited-access circumferential highway in the United States. Route 128 popularly runs concurrently with Interstate 95 from Canton north to Peabody, and when I-95 continues north from Peabody toward New Hampshire, east from Peabody to Gloucester. Until the early 1990s, it also ran concurrently with the present Interstate 93 from Canton to Braintree. This stretch of Interstate 93, which is now also designated as part of U.S. Route 1, though no longer officially part of Route 128, is still often referred to as Route 128 by locals. The I-95 and I-93 signage were added in the mid-1970s when plans to construct I-95 through Boston, directly connecting the two I-95 Route 128 interchanges, were cancelled, leaving an unsigned gap. An unused cloverleaf in Canton, now removed, was one of the leftover structures from this plan, as well as the existing Northeast Expressway, until 1965, while and shortly after the Route 3 freeway to Cape Cod was fully finished. The section of current Route 3 between exits 15 and 20 was also designated as Route 128. The route's southern end was then truncated to its intersection with Route 3 in Braintree. The non-freeway section of Route 128 from Route 3 through Hingham to Nantasket was redesignated Route 228. The Massachusetts Highway Department has tried twice, in 1997 and 2003, to truncate 128 even further, back to its intersection with I-95 in Peabody, but local opposition has convinced them to back down. A reflection of these attempts are along every interchange, where the main signage on the intersecting route indicates the highway as I-95, while smaller signage to the sides also identifies the road as Route 128. The area along the western part of Route 128 is home to a number of high-technology firms and corporations. This part of Route 128 has been dubbed and even signed as America's Technology Highway, and through to the end of the 1980s, was second only to Silicon Valley. Roughly 6 months later, those blue signs were later changed to America's Technology Region, due to complaints received from MA's National Guard's Yankee Division, the Yankee Division Association, after whom the highway was officially named circa 1948. Route 128 makes more than a 180-degree arc around Boston, and clockwise is north even when the road heads slightly south of east when approaching the Atlantic Ocean. Hackers in the area refer to this as going logical north on the route. Interstate 93, going north and south, intersects Route 128, which nominally goes north and south at a right angle, about 15 miles north of Boston. A traveler going logical south on 128 from the I-93 interchange will soon find himself driving due west. Traveling logically south on 128 and I-95 and north on US 3 in a wrong-way concurrency, like the I-95 signage mapping onto 128. The mapping of US 3 onto this stretch of 128 is due to US 3 as a separate limited-access highway terminating in Burlington on 128 instead of further south at Route 2 in Lexington as originally envisioned. This abrupt termination requires the US 3 signage to continue along 128 for somewhat over a mile until it can interchange the old US 3 surface arterial. Moreover, when I-93 and Route 128 ran concurrently south of Boston, before the route was truncated to the I-95 interchange in Canton, they were signed in opposite directions, so it was possible to travel north on I-93 and south on Route 128 at the same time. Much of Route 128 is now part of the interstate system, being concurrent with I-95. However, the vast majority of locals will refer to these stretches as 128. It is uncommon for a local to use the interstate designation in ordinary conversation while giving directions. The northernmost several exits along Route 128, past Exit 12, are not grade-separated interchanges. Exit 10 is signed as the signalized intersection with Route 127, and there are 2 rotaries between that and Exit 12. Following the completion of the Peabody I-95 Route 128 interchange in 1988, the exit system was changed from concurrency along 128 to a system using the I-95 exits. The exits, which had gone from Gloucester to Braintree, were renumbered along I-95 for the Rhode Island state line to the border with New Hampshire. Exit 37 had been the interchange with I-93, which also had its exit numbered 37 at that interchange. Coincidentally, with the renumbering, Exit 37 remained Exit 37. Route 128 station is located along the highway in Westwood, Massachusetts, and is served by Amtrak's Northeast Corridor line and MBTA commuter rail. The high-tech region. In 1955, Businessweek ran an article titled "New England Highway Upsets Old Way of Life" and referred to Route 128 as the magic semicircle. By 1958, it needed to be widened from 6 to 8 lanes, and business growth continued, often driven by technology out of Harvard University and MIT. In 1957, there were 99 companies employing 17,000 workers along 128. In 1965, 574. In 1973, 1,212. In the 1980s, the area was often compared to California's Silicon Valley, and the positive effects of this growth on the Massachusetts economy were dubbed the Massachusetts Miracle. Major companies with significant locations in the broader Route 128 area included history, surfaced roads and South Circumferential Highway. Route 128 was assigned by 1927 along local roads, running from Route 138 in Milton around the west side of Boston to Route 107 in Salem. Its route was as follows. By 1928, it had been extended east to Quincy from its south end along the following streets, ending at the intersection of Route 3 and Route 3A. The first section of the new Circumferential Highway, in no way the freeway that it is now, was the piece from Route 9 in Wellesley around the south side of Boston to Route 3 in Hingham. Parts of this were built as new roads, but most of it was along existing roads that were improved to handle the traffic. In 1931, the Massachusetts Department of Public Works acquired a right-of-way from Route 138 in Canton through Westwood, Dedham and Needham to Route 9 in Wellesley. This was mostly 80 feet wide, only shrinking to 70 feet in Needham, in the area of Great Plain Avenue and the Needham Line. Much of this was along new alignment, but about half, mostly in Needham, was along existing roads. Royal Street from west of Route 138 to east of Green Street. Green Lodge Street from Royal Street to Route 128 Station. Greendale Avenue from Lyons Street and Common Street just south of the Charles River to Hunting Avenue. Fremont Street north from Highland Avenue. Reservoir Street from Central Avenue to Route 9. From Route 138 in Canton east through the Blue Hills Reservation in Canton, Milton, Quincy and Braintree. Norfolk County acquired a right-of-way in 1927 and built the Blue Hill River Road. This tied into West Street in northwest Braintree, which itself had been taken over by the county in 1923. West Street led to Route 37, which ran southeast of Braintree Center. This part of Route 37 had been taken over by the state in 1919 and 1917. The rest of the new highway, from Route 37 east to Route 3, through Braintree, Weymouth and Hingham, was taken over by the state in 1929. This was all along existing roads, except possibly the part of Park Avenue west of Route 18 in Weymouth. By 1933, the whole Circumferential Highway had been completed and, except for the piece from Route 9 in Wellesley south to Highland Avenue in Needham, was designated as Route 128. Former Route 128 along Highland Avenue into Needham Center was left unnumbered, but the rest of former Route 128, from Needham Center east to Quincy, became part of Route 135. Thus the full route of the Circumferential Highway, as it existed by 1933, is now the following roads. At the same time as Route 128 was extended along the new Circumferential Highway, it was extended further into Hull. This alignment, not part of the Circumferential Highway, ran southeast on Route 3 to the border of Hingham and Norwell, where it turned north on present Route 228 through Hingham and into Hull. The exact route through Hingham was Main Street, Short Street, Leavitt Street, East Street, and Hull Street. The end of the numbered route was at the south end of Nantasket Beach, where Nantasket Avenue curves northwest to follow the shore of Massachusetts Bay. Route 128, I-95, I-93 Adair Lane Project. The $315 million Mass.Highway Division project has started widening on the project to upgrade the existing 14.3-mile 6-lane section of highway to 8 lanes from north of Route 9 in Wellesley to Route 24 in Randall. The project consists of adding a lane on the inside of each carriageway, complete with a 10-foot inside shoulder. The existing 1950s bridges, 22 in total, will be replaced as well. The project will be constructed in 5 phases over a 12-year period. Construction of Phase 1 began in 2004. The first phase of the project consisted of replacing the existing 3-lane Route 128 bridges over University Avenue, MBTA, Amtrak and the Neponset River with new 4-lane bridges in Canton. The project also included construction of a new 2-lane ramp from Route 128 to I-95. The $33 million project was awarded to SPS New England of Salisbury. During the initial construction of Route 128, a provision had already been made for a 4th lane within the widely spaced median along the 1.5-mile length of Route 128 running from just north of the U.S. Route 1 interchange in Dedic, Massachusetts, northwestwards to the Route 109 interchange, and this will finally be used for the A-Day Lane project. Construction on Phase 1 was officially completed in October 2009. Construction of Phase 2 of the project began in summer 2006. This phase of the project consisted of the replacement of the Route 1 and Route 1A bridges over Route 128 in Dedham along with the road widening between exits 13 and 15. Construction of 4 sound barriers between the US 1 and I-95 interchanges were also included. This phase was completed in the spring of 2011. Construction on Phase 3, begun in April 2009, is widening I-93, US 1 to 4 lanes in each direction from Route 24 to the I-95 interchange. This phase of the project was expected to be completed by September 2011, however now will not be finished until mid-2012. Phase 4 of the project, which began in March 2011, is replacing 7 bridges and widens Route 128 to 4 lanes in each direction from Route 109 to south of Highland Avenue in Needham. This phase of the project is expected to be completed by June 2015 with an estimated cost of $88 million, the most expensive contract so far. The spring 2015 construction period for this phase has contributed to a traffic nightmare for commuters as traffic now ties up from RT 135 all the way back to Braintree daily by 6:30 a.m. This has doubled or even tripled commutes. The Southeastern Freeway that extends from Braintree to Cape Cod, MA Route 3, is also in the process of undergoing a similar add-a-lane project for much of its own 42-mile length. Route 128 corridor study. The Boston area MPO studied the Route 128 I-95 corridor from approximately 2005 to 2010. The study focused on the heavily congested section from I-90 to US 3, and was completed in November 2010. As of 2010, the highway carried over 200,000 vehicles per day. Some possible improvements to Route 128 include HOV lanes, reconstruction of shoulders, ramp metering, bus on shoulder, and fiber optic traffic system improvements. More studies will need to be completed before projects will begin. Signage. Over the last 15 years, the state has funded a number of highway sign resigning projects on Route 128 that are replacing the 25-year-old signs with new exit, regulatory and route signs. Starting in 1998 and continuing through 2002, signs were replaced through a $1.1 million project between Reading and Linfield. Progress continued in 2005 and 2006 during a $2.2 million project which replaced the signs on from Peabody to Gloucester, and continued with a $1.4 million project in 2008 and 2009 that replaced signs in Peabody and the remaining ones in Linfield. A $2.9 million federal stimulus project helped replace exit and highway signs in 2010 and 2011 along Route 128 from US 3 in Lexington to I-93 in Reading. A project began in the fall of 2012 and completed in the fall of 2015, replaced exit and amp guide signs on Route 128 from Route 9 in Wellesley to routes 4 225th in Lexington and, as part of the Ade Lane project discussed above, new signs were put up along section of the project completed in 2015 from Great Plain Avenue in Needham to Route 109 in Dedham. New signage was put up between I-95 and US 1 in 2010, and most of the signage between I-95 and Route 24 has been replaced by the end of 2011. Future projects will replace the signs between the Rhode Island border and I-93 in Canton in 2018 and between I-93 in Reading and US 1 in Peabody in 2019. New mileage markers were placed every 0.2 of a mile along the highway in 2010 for I-93 between Braintree and Canton and I-95 from Canton to Peabody. New markers put along Route 128 from Peabody to Gloucester reflect the state highway's total mileage from Canton, indicating MassDOT's change of heart in decommissioning the route where it shares the road with I-95. The previous mile markers had mile 0 in Peabody. Exit list. Exit numbers along the I-95 portion of Route 128 are in accordance to the I-95 exit numbering scheme in Massachusetts. The stretch north of I-95, as well as the rest of the length before I-95 exit numbering was applied, has decreasing exit numbers traveling northbound, contrary to almost all highways in the U.S. with numbered exits. Route 128 currently has 18 numbered interchanges, starting at 29 and continuing downwards to 9. This will be changed over the next year or two as all freeway interchanges in Massachusetts will be converted to mileage-based numbers under a project scheduled to start in January 2016. In order to comply with federal regulations mandating mileage-based exit numbers on interstate highways, these numbers will abide by standard numbering rules and increase from 37 in Peabody to 54 in Gloucester, with the traffic circles and at grade intersections no longer receiving numbers. Bibliography. Susan Rose Grant, David R. Lamb, Route 128, Lessons from Boston's High-Tech Community, Basic Books, 1992, ISBN 0-465-046398. The story of the Boston high-tech industry, starting from its 19th-century roots. Alan R. Earls, Route 128 and the Birth of the Age of High-Tech, Arcadia Publishing, 2002, ISBN 978-0738510767. After World War II, Route 128, dubbed by critics the Road to Nowhere, became the locus of high-tech development. Annalise Saxenian, Regional Advantage.